Acharya Shota Sadashri A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Shri Shri Gaunitai ki Shri Krishna Balaram ki Shri Radha Govinda Madhava ki Vantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Harinama Sankirtan ki Madanga ki Go Premanandi, oh glorious to the assembled devotees, oh glorious to Sri Guru Granthi Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale, Srimati Vedanta Swami Tinamani, Namaste Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Pracharine Navasesha Sanyari, Pastachade Shatari. Hare Krishna. We may need a French translation. Somebody can ask. In French, please somebody ask in French, who needs a French translation? 1, 2, 3. Who will do the French translation? Any volunteer or Chittalia? Is that okay? You can multitask? You can multitask? Pardon?
There's not much choice of translators anyway.
So if you can sit back with Chittalila, maybe or maybe Chittalila, maybe mice will feel a little uncomfortable right in the middle of the ladies. Maybe you can move a little bit this side so it's a little bit more neutral. Oh, what is your name?
Axel.
Pardon?
Axel.
Axel? Axel. So there's 2 Prabhus. That's fine because Axel is also here, so there's 2 men, 1 lady. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jai Shri Prabhupada. We're reading today from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th Canto, Chapter 2. Text number 8, correct? The chapter is entitled Prayers by the Demigods. Yes. Very significant verse and purport today. Quite a long purport, so please try to be attentive. Devakya Jatare Garbham Sheshakyam Dhama Mamakam Tat Sanikrishya Rohinya Udare Saniveshaya Devakya Jatare Garbham Sheshakyam Dhama Mamakam Tatsani Krishya Rohinya Udare Saniveshaya Devakya Jatare Garbham Sheshakyam Dhama Mamakam Tatsani Krishya Rohinya Udare Saniveshaya Devakya Jatare Garbham Sheshakyam Dhama Mamakam Tatsani Krishya Rohinya Udare Saniveshaya Devakya Jatare Garbham Sheshakyam Dhama Mamakam Tatsani Krishna Rohingya Udare Saniveshaya
Devakya Jataregabam Seshakyam Dhamamamakam Tatsani Krishna Rohingya Udare Saniveshaya
Devakya Jataregabam Seshakyam Dhamamamakam Tatsani Krishna Rohingya Udare Saniveshaya
Ladies.
Devakya Jataregabam
Seshakyam Dhamamamakam
Tatsani Krishna Rohingya Udare Saniveshaya Devakya Jataregabam Seshakyam Dhamamamakam Tatsani Krishna Rohingya Udare Saniveshaya.
Hare Krishna. We may need a translation. Is it Ukrainian? Ukrainian? Russian's okay? Who's going to translate? You're translating?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. Multiple translations. Any other language required? Hare Krishna. So, we'll read the word for word. Devakya of Devaki. Jatare within the womb. Garbham the embryo. Shesha Akyam known as Sesha. The plenary expansion of Krishna. Dhamma. The plenary expansion. Mamakam. Of me. Tat. Him. Stani Krishna. Attracting. Rohinyaha. Of Rohini. Udare. Within the womb. Saniveshaya. Transfer without difficulty. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Within the womb of Devaki is my partial plenary expansion, known as Sankarshan or Shesha. Without difficulty, transfer him into the womb of Rohini. So this is the Lord speaking to his Yoga Maya potency, his internal energy, personified Yoga Maya. Purport. We can understand this word. All energy has a personal source. The first plenary expansion, that means full, complete, not partial but full. The first plenary expansion of Krishna is Baladev, also known as Sesha. The Sesha incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead supports the entire universe, and the eternal mother of this incarnation is Mother Rohini. Because I'm going into the womb of Devaki, the Lord told Yogamaya, the Sesha incarnation has already gone there, and made suitable arrangements so that I may live there. Now he should enter the womb of Rohini, his eternal mother. It's very interesting. Events are going on, but it also illustrates the unique process of devotional service. Our Krishna Prema, and ultimately Krishna himself, appears before the aspiring devotee. We'll get back to that later, listen carefully. In this connection, one may ask how the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is always situated transcendentally, could enter the womb of Devaki, which had previously been entered by the 6 asuras. Asura means demons. They're called the Sadgarbhas. Literally 6 sons, who 6 within the womb, 6 of them. Does this mean that the Satgarbhasuras were equal to the transcendental body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? They appeared in the same womb, same mother, same father. The following answer is given by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And the rest of the purport, Prabhupada, he more or less gives the purport of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur to this verse. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was a great scholar, a great realized devotee of the Lord, who maybe 300 or 400 years ago appeared and has presented commentaries on many of the Vaishnava devotee scriptures. The entire creation, as well as its individual parts, is an expansion of the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, even though the Lord enters the material world, he does not do so. This is explained by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita 9:4-5. Ayatatam midam sarvam jagadavyaktam murtina matstani sarvabhutani nachaham te svapastitaha nachamatstani bhutani pasyamayogam aishvaram bhutavrinna cha bhutasto mamatma bhutabhava. Krishna says to Arjuna, by me in my unmanifested form, we can't see him, he's present in every atom, he's present everywhere in his creation, but we may not be able to perceive him with our conditioned senses, our materialistic senses, but he's there, sustaining the entire creation, guiding the conscious living entities. This entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. This is quite a, you could say, seeming like almost like a contradictory statement, which maybe we may or may not get into that. It's not the thrust of this purport, by the way. And yet everything that is created does not rest in me. Behold my mystic opulences. Quite a contradiction, it would seem. Although I am the maintainer of all living entities, and although I am everywhere, myself is the very source of creation. Krishna is beyond it all. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahman. Everything is an expansion of Brahman, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's another address of the Supreme. Everything is spiritual, in other words. Reciprocating with the living entities, the spiritual energy takes, you could say, the reverse form of appearing to be the material energy. This pastime, Vishwanath Chakravarti explains, is like the interface between matter and spirit, to see how the two are connected. Yet everything is not the Supreme Godhead. And He is not everywhere. He's referring to His supreme original form, Krishna. He's aloof from this creation. He expands in an unmanifested form simply for the sake of maintenance of this universe. Originally you could say creation, through His various agencies or expansions, but primarily to facilitate the errant or the conditioned souls, the jivas who've chosen to be independent of the Lord's will. Such truth cannot be understood, however, unless one is a pure devotee. For the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yas chasmi tatvataha. One can understand the Supreme Personality as He is only by devotional service. Even though the Lord cannot be understood by ordinary persons, this principle should be understood from the statement of the scriptures or shastras. We may not be able to realize these things, but we hear from the realized souls about the four various energies of the Lord and how they interact, and how the Lord interacts with His energies. A pure devotee is always transcendently situated because of executing 9 different processes of bhakti yoga. Shravanam, Kirtanam, together, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmani, Vedanam. And in English, as most of us do not know Sanskrit, this is part of a verse spoken by Prahlad Maharaj in the 7th canto of Bhagavatam. What does it mean? Shravanam Kirtanam, what is that? Easy one. Pardon? Shravanam Kirtanam means? Hearing, chanting. Shravanam Kirtanam. Vishnu is Krishna. Smaranam. What's Smaranam? Remembering you, whether you remember. Padasevanam means?
Serving the lotus feet.
Serving the lotus feet. Archanam. Worshipping the Lord. Vandanam. Offering prayers to the Lord. Dasyam. Serving the Lord in so many ways. Sakyam.
Friendship.
Befriending the Lord. This is a bit higher than practical service. The devotee, of course, is cultivating a friendly or favorable relationship. We're not on that platform of an actual direct relationship of Sakya Ras exactly. Atmani Vedanam. What does that mean?
Surrendering everything.
Surrendering everything to the Lord. And that's the process of coming to that level of surrendering everything, not just their possessions, but their very life force itself. Just situated in devotional service, a devotee, although in the material world, is not in the material world. I think Christ mentions something like that. Although you're in the world, you're not of the world. Yet a devotee always fears. Now, this is, in one sense, the thrust of this purport. How to come to pure devotional service. Everything becomes clear. With our conditioned senses, things may not be clear. We may get confused or understand things out of context, or not be able to understand at all. Devotee always fears, he said, because I'm associated with the material world, so many contaminations affect me. Now, the material energy does not affect Krishna. He's unaffected, just like the sun is unaffected when it shines on a dirty body of water, for instance, or urine, in fact it purifies it, it dries it up, purifies it, and is not affected. Krishna is Pavitram, also purifier. He's not affected by, even if he is unmanifested form, but even if he comes in his manifested form, he's not affected by the material energy. Quite to the contrary. The energy, or there's a purification that takes place by his presence. If someone can bring the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, please. I think it's better. Therefore, the devotee, or the aspiring devotee, is always afraid, fears, because I'm associated with the material, so many contaminations affect me. Therefore, he is always alert in fear, which gradually diminishes his material association. And we sometimes hear that the devotee is not afraid of this material world. Pure devotee is not afraid of the material energy. But here it says the devotee is always alert in fear. So this is kind of the thrust, at least is what we're going to try to look at a little bit today. We could look at the chronological, historical events which are taking place, and that will come up now a little bit. 7th canto, what are you looking for?
I was looking for the first.
Oh, I see. Yeah, there's somewhere. Number 15, I think. Symbolically, it's the prayers of the Lord, right? Is that it? Prayers of the Lord. Symbolically, now this is interesting, and try to listen carefully, try to understand it if you can. Symbolically, Mother Devaki is also the eternal mother of the Lord in a particular mood. Mother Devaki's constant fear of Kamsa, who was the arch demon of the day, who was terrorizing everyone in the area. Devaki had constant fear of Kamsa, and that was purifying her. You might think, why she's afraid of Kamsa? She's a devotee, Krishna will protect her, but it's all part of Krishna's plan. Kamsa was known as fear personified. Actually, fear personified. He was also fearful of Krishna, but he made everyone else fearful also. Quite a character. And we heard the history of the day behind some of these events. A pure devotee should always fear material association. Of course, we could say when one's totally pure, transcendental, coming from the spiritual realm into this world for service to the Lord, what does a devotee have to fear? He's always under the shelter of the Lord. But he's teaching if necessary. It's like our Srila Prabhupada. Sometimes he would be found praying to the Lord, to Radharani, to the Lord, please protect me that I not become overwhelmed by this material energy. Prabhupada's servants would sometimes reveal that. And he would pray like this. And Prabhupada answered one time to Shruti Kirti, he said, Shruti Kirti was inquiring as to why. You're praying like this, Shri Prabhupada, and Shri Prabhupada said, this is the reason or the nature of a pure devotee. He's always taking shelter, and of course he may not be, he may sound a little bit, proud, and he's not. It's to show us by example. But a pure devotee of the Lord is always taking shelter. He never takes it for granted that I am so great, I can be. This material energy is very powerful, difficult to overcome. Only those who surrender unto me can easily cross beyond it. Why? Because if you surrender to Krishna, Krishna takes care. In the 18th chapter he says, I remove all the fear. those who surrender unto me, have no fear. I protect you. So a devotee is one of always, or one of the characteristics of Sharanagati or surrender, is the devotee is always depending on the Lord's mercy. He's always expecting His mercy. He's always taking shelter of the Lord. He has no other real shelter. So someone who's unalloyed like that, they're not looking elsewhere. Sarvadharmam parityajya. He has no other shelter. He doesn't look elsewhere for protection. He takes complete shelter of Krishna. On the practical level, one may obviously use your common sense, intelligence to do the needful, but in the heart of hearts, he's completely dependent on Krishna. Such a devotee is protected. The Lord gives him that protection. That protection is removing the fear, you could say, one aspect. So then it goes on. A pure devotee should always fear material association. And in this, he says, it doesn't say the material world exactly, although it is actually. Material association is more than just, let's say the material objects around us. The tendency to enjoy the material world is very fearful. One said, once time, he said, the problem with my disciples is they're not afraid of Maya. We're still attracted by Maya's various forms, presentations, objects of sense enjoyment, etc. We may not see the danger there. There is danger at every step. At every step in this world there is danger, but we don't always see it like that. In spiritual life, really, it has to be along with this. It's not just a matter of some religious practices, but the awakening of fear. And that fear is not just a fear, it's a fear of how we relate to the world. It's not so much the world itself that the devotee is afraid of, it's Krishna's energy. The fear is that we may become attracted to it, separately from Krishna. So we see it separately from Krishna. A devotee is also afraid of bad association. And this we'll see in a minute. Prahlad Maharaj will express that. We've all been born in various situations. We may still have an attraction to those situations. Be they attractions to various personalities or their position in the world. We may be attracted to, material opulences, material sense enjoyment in the form of music, in the form of this, that, and the other, different hobbies, etc. Different scenes in the material world. Maybe attracted to a beautiful mountain range or the ocean, or our own bodies, the bodies of others. We may be attracted to a nice car. Sometimes men have this addiction to cars. Maybe ladies also have now, I don't know, but it didn't used to be like that much. Or some sport. I was talking to one devotee yesterday, two devotees together, and I was surprised to hear that one of them was a lady, was a very good rugby player. In the past, no lady would ever dream of playing rugby, not even watch it, what to speak of play it. But nowadays it's become quite common, apparently. Even boxing. Attracted or attached to all these mundane bodily activities. And this keeps us bound up. So on the path of devotional service, these are alarm clocks go off when these desires start to captivate us, or these impressions in our hearts start to captivate us. Danger there. So alert in fear. If we're always alert in fear, we read that, did we? Yes, we did. So when we're alert in fear, it's an interesting sentence. it gradually diminishes our material association. The whole thing is there, the arrangement is there for the devotee. Not to exactly punish or reward, but to change our perception so that we no longer become inclined towards trying to enjoy the material energies of the Lord, but rather see them as opportunities to remember Krishna or serve Krishna, connect them to Krishna, etc. Much of the Bhagavad Gita is Krishna is explaining how everything is connected to him and how we should see the connection with him, and not to see it just in relationship to our imperfect perception. So we go on. Fear material association. Not so much the material in of itself, but the association with it. And in this way, if a pure devotee should always fear material association, and in this way all the asuras of material association will be killed. Interesting. What are those asuras of material association? What are they? It's not some nasty person who's exploiting us, some manipulative person, some psychopath or something. No. What are those material asuras? What are they? Yes, this was mentioned and is mentioned again here as the Garbhasuras, these are the 6 demons, were killed by Kamsa. Very interesting how you could say the enemy himself killed one's enemies. Sometimes we say, the Prabhupada said, you remove a thorn with a thorn. You have a thorn stuck in your side, you have to take a needle or a thorn to get it out. So in sort of a way, because Kamsa represents material fear, so that healthy material fear, not the paranoia of this material world which is based on ignorance, but based on knowledge of everything's relationship with Krishna. That type of fear of losing that opportunity will be coming into a situation which will take us away from Krishna consciousness. Whatever it may be on our mobile phone or in our computer or in the association of others, or whatever, or just meditate, or just following our mind's demands. If they're not Krishna conscious, that is, which often happens. Allowing negative thoughts to pervade our consciousness. We'll hear a little bit more about that later. In other words, Marichi is an incarnation. Oh, we missed something there. The Garbhasuras were killed by Krishna. It is said that from the mind, and this is reality, but it's also a comparison in a sense, or some kind of example given here. It is said that from the mind, Marichi appears. In other words, Marichi is an incarnation of the mind. Mind is one of the energies of the Lord. It's everywhere, you could say, in this world, the mind. Marichi has 6 sons, and that's already mentioned. Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Madha, Moha, and Matsarya, which means lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, and envy. These are our 6 enemies. This is also explained by Prahlad Maharaj because his father was named Hiranyakashipu. Like Kamsa, he was a great demon who wanted to conquer the much more powerful, at least in manifestation, than Kamsa was, that's for sure. Hiranyakashipu would, practically speaking, conquer the universe, and everyone was bowing down to him, except for his own son, Prahlad Maharaj. This was unbearable to Hiranyakashipu. Even the gods were bowing down. That means the agents of the Lord within this universe were bowing down to Hiranyakashipu, but not his son. This was unbearable. So one time, Hiranyakashipu, he thought he could conquer the universe, but he couldn't conquer his son. Prahlad became an enemy of his father. And Prahlad said, "My dear demon dad, actually you're no enemy. The only enemy is your uncontrolled mind." But he did that. The fact is, the uncontrolled mind is our enemy. But sometimes it's not so easy, is it? It's not so easy to... If we can't fight with the mind, what chance do we have? It's pretty hard to control the restless. Krishna says it's possible by regulation and by detachment. Detachment, by the way, in reality it means good association. Not just detaching ourselves from bad association. It's very hard. Impersonalists try that one. But on the path of devotion, it really means surrounding ourselves and taking good association. You find, for instance, in a day, today was the last day of Purushottam Mass. Today we're back in Chaturmasya again, whatever that means to you. And you generally find on any day, if you have morning program, generally, that you feel more protected during the day. When you hear class, when you chant japa, and the kirtan, etc., worship the spiritual master, one feels more protected. One doesn't feel so afraid of the challenges that the day may bring. Huh? We may have to deal with some uncomfortable things sometimes. We don't know what's coming. Sometimes we're a little apprehensive. But with the good association of hearing Bhagavatam and Kirtan, so one can feel less afraid, at least, if not fear less. Fear less means also less fear. So one fears fearless. Because one has connected through the path of bhakti, through the path of devotional service given by a pure devotee. So in that way we feel less afraid, less troubled by whatever it is, whatever we have to associate with during the day, or when things come up in their mind, their intelligence is sharper to rectify or control those wayward thoughts. We'll read on. So they were killed. Why? It is said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears in pure devotional service. This is confirmed in the Vedas. Bhaktir evainam darshayati. Only bhakti can bring one in contact with the Supreme Personality of God. The Supreme Personality of God had appeared from the womb of Devaki, and therefore Devaki symbolically represents pure bhakti or pure devotion. Shuddha sattva, pure devotion. Not mixed, but pure. So the Lord appeared in her womb because she represents pure bhakti. And Kamsa symbolically represents material fear. When a pure devotee always fears material association, his real position of bhakti is manifested, and he naturally becomes uninterested in material enjoyment. When the 6 sons of Marishi are killed by such fear, and one is freed from material contamination, within the womb of bhakti, the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears. So this is, I don't think of the word, I can't think of it, but this history here also represents the very path of devotional service. Thus, the seventh pregnancy of Devaki signifies the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After the 6 sons, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, and Matsarya are killed, the Shesha incarnation creates a suitable situation for the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, when one awakens his natural Krishna consciousness, Lord Krishna appears. This is the explanation given by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur does expand a little bit on that also in that same purport. In terms of Baladev, his eternal mother being Rohini, as mentioned here, not Devaki. However, Devaki representing pure devotional service. So Lord Balaram, as we may have heard, is the original guru. Amongst many other factors, he's the support, he's the background in the spiritual world, the support in this world. He also appears as Krishna's bed and couch and seat, etc., etc. Man expands in that form to serve Krishna's needs. So in this case also, Krishna requested, Vishnu explains, the Lord requested his first expansion to appear in the womb of Devaki and prepare the way. Just like the Guru appears before us to clean up our dirty consciousness and prepares for the appearance of Krishna. It goes on simultaneously with the execution of, you could say, positive devotional service. We avoid certain activities and certain associations. We engage in activities which purify us of our past conditioning, our various samskaras which in our heart mean impressions of previous lives, material desires and artas, are called unwanted things, which pervade our consciousness, tendencies in this material. People have all kinds of tendencies in this world which are holding us in this world. Tendency to try to enjoy other bodies of other living entities, to enjoy our own body, a tendency to try to exploit and so on and so forth in various ways, and then detailed tendencies and specifics within that. All these things hold us, they're anchors keeping us in this world, even if they are in the mode of goodness. We're attached to piety, we're attached to nice eco situations. We're attached to being polite to people, being seen as a good person, trying to create, peace. It's okay, materially speaking, this sounds all good, but it's material. It's still an attachment to something separate from Krishna. Of course, that can be connected to Krishna, but in and of itself, it's material. Even austerities, we may be attached to certain austerities, etc., etc. Without actually, if it's not connected to Krishna, if it's not in relationship to pleasing Krishna, it is not actually pure devotion. It may be utilized in the process, but it's not in of itself, it's mundane, material. What is Krishna? How does sitting under the water performing austerities please Krishna? How does, standing on your head standing on your tiptoes like a Hiranyakashipu for 100 years or whatever, please Krishna? It depends on the motive and depends on whether this is an authorized process of purification and a connection with the Lord or not. In most cases, it is not. It is some selfish motivation, aggrandizement or achievement of some material power or something, fame or something. That is not pleasing to Krishna, quite the opposite, quite the opposite. So we've just finished this report here. Well, we finished it already. We have finished it. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur goes to explain how the Guru's business is to try to remove these various blockages by the process of, and by sharp words sometimes. We sometimes object, react, or whatever it may be. As Prabhupada says, you know, a man may tolerate, anyone may tolerate, all kinds of difficulties in family life, insults, failures, difficulties, chastisements, you name it. You tolerate up to a point, at least, in this life, for the sake of a little sense gratification. But when the spiritual master says one word of chastisement, I'm not listening to you anymore. Unbearable. The highest goal. Sometimes that's there. Chastisement, correction, call it what you will. But change in how we see things. Shastra, in other form, it's like a weapon to cut out our false concepts, or to connect them to Krishna, to bring them to the proper understanding, so their perception of the world becomes changed, instead of seeing ourselves in the center, which is the cause of fear. Identifying with this body as the self and seeing ourself and our selfish desires as the goal of life causes fear. Unpleasant fear. When the devotee realizes that, then it becomes fearful of that attitude, that mentality. The mentality is the fearful thing. The mentality of thinking I'm the enjoyer, of thinking this world is for my enjoyment, that I'm in this Krishna consciousness movement for my enjoyment. I'm here to get something out of this. Well, on a transcendental platform, that's another thing, but we're still conditioned. We have this mixed tendencies sometimes. Of course, it's expected in the beginning, it will be there, but we should, as the healthy fear of these, let's say, separatist mentality starts to develop in our hearts, then our tendency for material enjoyment diminishes as we become more. That's dangerous. That's going to interfere with pleasing Krishna or my devotional service, or against my spiritual master's words, directions, etc. So Baladev appears there, and he expands in the womb of Devaki as Anantashesh, and purifies the heart, the womb, like that you could say, although Devaki, a pure devotee of the Lord, in one sense is not affected, but still he purifies that situation, preparing it, just like in you could say, the womb or the heart of an aspiring devotee. The words of the spiritual master, Shastra, Guru, Sadhu, etc., purify our consciousness. We sing every morning, those of us who are fortunate enough to be in Guru Puja. What's that third verse? Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chite Te Prohiya Hekya. What are we praying for? Guru Mukha Padma Vakya.
Purified from the words emanating from the Guru's mouth.
Yes, may my consciousness be purified by the words emanating from the lotus mouth of the spiritual master. They purify our consciousness. Hear regularly Srila Prabhupada's lectures. Listen to them. Try to hear them attentively. Hear his kirtan. Read his books. Realization. Put them into practice. When we put those words which are coming from the spiritual world into practice, then the purification of our heart, not just purification, but the realization awakens. Krishna gives that realization. It's not a mechanical process of it. May appear to be, but it's not. It's the reciprocation of the Lord with the jiva. That he first cleanses the heart, and in that cleansed heart, Anantashesh also is the personification of service to the Lord. He appears in this way to facilitate the mood of service in our lives. Expansion of Bala. After he appeared, and once Anantashesh was established in the womb, Devaki, then Krishna, then this verse here, how then the Lord tells his Yogamaya to transfer him into the womb of Rohini, who is his eternal mother. That's another historic description given, a chronological, historical, call it what you will, story of how that occurred, explained also by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in another purport, of how he entered the womb of Rohini and so on and so forth. But preparing the way, and Vasudeva, also the father of Krishna and Balaram, in the sense of his appearing in Devaki's womb, also means pure goodness. So both mother and father were basically pure devotee, pure devotional service. And when that's the case, in this particular case, the Lord appears in the heart when pure devotion is developed or awakens within our consciousness. This is Balaram's special purpose, you could say, to clean up all the dirty things and also to engage us in pure devotional service. He's the personification of service. In that way, it's 9 o'clock. And in other words, when one awakens his natural... we're going to read the Bhagavatam. Is it here? Here it is. Prahlad Maharaj elucidates or further expands upon this. And that's not the verse I'm looking for, but I think I know what it is. We're in the wrong chapter altogether on that one, that's for sure. Where are we? Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad pacifies the Lord with prayers. Here we go. I think it's 15, 16, something like that. Yes. In text 15, Prahlad says, now imagine Lord Nrsimhadev, the most fearful form of the demons of the Lord of all. Terrible, fearful form with sharp nails and blazing eyes and sharp teeth and roaring lion-like form, a great many arms ripping everything. He's very fearful looking. But he said, I'm certainly not afraid of your ferocious mouth and tongue, your eyes bright like the sun, or your frowning eyebrows. I do not fear your sharp pinching teeth. It's amazing how powerful things are fearful. You ever been on the edge of a cliff which is thousands of feet sharp? Whew, what a fear of falling over that edge. Or a mighty ocean, crashing waves, 30, 40, 50 feet high waves. Terrible thought. Drowning. Fish, for the fish is not at all fearful. The fish is taking shelter of the ocean. He's having a ball of a time in the ocean, enjoying himself. He's taking shelter. The cub, Prabhupada gives the example, perhaps in this purport, of a cub. The lion is indeed fearful to the other animals. But to the cub, the lion is not at all fearful. In fact, the lion is its shelter. He was completely safe in that association. Taking shelter. He takes shelter of Krishna. His holy name, feared by fear personified. Nothing to fear. We take shelter of the holy name whenever there's danger at every step. That's what Prabhupada said we should always chant. Sometimes we're forgetting that, and we only take shelter of the holy name when there's an apparent situation which we relate to as fearful. Even in our conditioned state. We take shelter of the holy name as feared by fear personified, as stated in the Bhagavatam. So he's not afraid of all of these features of the Lord. But then he says, O most powerful, insurmountable Lord, text 16, who are kind to the fallen souls. I've been put into the association of demons as a result of my activities. Of course, we're placed into the material world in the first place, not necessarily in the association of demons, but by our desire. And according to how we react with the situation, we take various births after the first initial entry. Birth after birth in this material world, and we become implicated. When we exploit the world in a very selfish way, then we end up in demoniac forms or lower forms of life, and consequently become completely captured by the material energy and suffering as a consequence. So at this point, Prahlad Maharaj is accepting he is, what situation he is in, is responsible for it. There's no one else to blame. It's not the demons that are surrounding me that are causing my suffering. It's because of my own misbehavior that I'm in this position now and getting the fruits of my work, so to speak. Reaping the fruits of my work by having the association of demons. For a devotee, it of course is a very unpleasant situation, you could say, but it can also cause total dependence on the Lord. You have no choice. Can't take it for granted. And therefore I am very much afraid, he said, Prahlad said, I am very much afraid of my condition of life within this material world. I'm in the association of demons or demoniac association. And I'm still, for whatever reason, I may have an attraction to that aspect too. I'm afraid that that association will draw me away from Krishna. I'll become, conditioned or forced by association to think otherwise. When will that moment come when you will call me to the shelter of your lotus feet, which are the ultimate goal for liberation from conditional life? This is the real taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. So I'll just finish by reading a little something here, I think. Let's say. What should I read? Yes, Prabhupada explains it. He's afraid of the bad association. That bad association produces aversion to Krishna. This is the real fear. He's afraid of the violence, of the fierce wheel of samsara. It's like Arjuna was afraid when he saw the universe of manifestation of this cycle of samsara, the unseen cycle. We only can see it in the kind of a analytical way of birth after death and birth again. But Arjuna actually saw the universal form of the Lord and how it actually was. He became very fearful. Filled, this material world, filled with hatred and criticism of you, my Lord. This is what the fear for the devotee. We're with persons who are inimical towards the Lord. So in our own lives, in our own association, we should try to be friends. Be friends with devotees by helping each other to remember Krishna. Not to further implicate or entangle each other in the material world, but indulging each other in activities which are inimical towards the Lord. Or critical towards devotees is even more dangerous than criticizing the Lord. Criticisms of devotees, fault-finding, hatred towards others, etc. These are very dangerous associations. So time has expired. We'll finish there. Any questions?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Preacher.
You said that Balaram's plenary means complete portion of Krishna. And now the Guna, no, not the Guvavanas, the expansions of Mahavishnu, Gavadakasha Vishnu, Kshiradakasha
Purusha avatars.
Huh?
Purusha avatars.
Purusha avatar, that's the word. So they are there, and Kshiradakasha Vishnu, we know, is the super soul in the heart. Now, my other question, since Lord Chaitanya is not a plenary portion, he is Krishna himself. And so, can one say that the super soul in the heart, which is coming out of him from Balaram, would be that Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda would be identical to the super soul, or is this too far-fetched?
External, well, even the Guru is known as the external manifestation of the super soul. So in that sense you could, they're all obviously related, the super souls you explained. Shri Dakshaya Vishnu, expansion of an expansion of Lord Balaram, and Lord Nityananda is Lord Balaram.
Yeah, that's it.
He is Lord Balaram himself. So, although maybe a different pastime, a different lila, but certainly that could be said that he is none other than the personification of the super soul, but that's only a part of his, it's only a part of his, you could say, completeness. And he's certainly doing the, you could say, the same principle of super soul, the Chaitanya Guru, guiding the living entities. He's guiding us to pure, in the path of pure bhakti. He's the Guru. He's showering his mercy, the gateway to pure devotional service. Lord Nityananda.
That's what Prabhupada told us. When they installed the babies in Vrindavan, all 6, he said, now you should go to Lord Nityananda. He said, he solves your problems. You don't even think of going.
Direct. So you can't approach Lord Chaitanya directly. In one sense, of course, we do, but we don't. We may unknowingly, we're not, because we're hearing how to do that through Prabhupada, through the Guru, through Lord Nityananda. That we're hearing that. But in reality, it's through Lord Nityananda that we're approaching Lord Chaitanya, and then approaching Lord Krishna. It's such a wonderful, you know, how can we say, everything's there in Lord
It's
Chaitanya.
just a pity that this is not understood by general devotees, because the practical example is when we sit in Bhagavatam class in Vrindavan, all the people are passing by, the visitors, they don't even look at Lord Chaitanya.
They don't know what it is. They don't know who are these people. It's so important without understanding the mission, Chaitanya Nitai, Gaur Nitai. How can we understand Radha Krishna?
And even then, in front of Lord Balaram, Krishna Balaram, some are standing,
Yeah.
and then in front of Radha
Everyone's in
Krishna,
Radha Krishna.
Radhisham, 150,000 people are standing, having a prayer like one girl.
Even devotees are like that, but speak of the common public usually.
It's a complete misunderstanding.
It's certainly, let's say, lacking in the actual understanding, that's for sure. And there's some attractions there. Certainly, it's like Prabhupada even says, for those who are like the Sahaja mentality, and he even writes out the Chaitanya Charitamrita, their attraction to, you know, whatever their Sahaja tendencies may be, their, you know, I love Krishna, create this and that, whatever they think, without actually having the eligibility. Nonetheless, Prabhupada said, even though their tears may be sentiment only, eventually they will bear fruit. So eventually it will happen, but it will take a long time. Lord Chaitanya has come to speed up the process, make it possible. We can become eligible for that, which is not so easy to attain by any means, through this Sankirtan movement. So somehow we can engage these people in Sankirtan, chanting, in Kirtan, dancing and chanting, in the association of devotees, then mercy, they may get that mercy to understand and appreciate. Together with informing, that's why Prabhupada emphasized so much the importance of Guru Garanga Autas, Gauni Tai. Many times our devotees, especially if they're from Indian origin, they also don't see this special feature of Lord's mercy. And the only way that we can really understand or have the who are Radha and Krishna, and what is the relationship and how Krishna will be pleased, etc., etc. And they often go into their home, they don't have Gauni Tai.
Narottam Thakur, he complains in one of his prayers, he said, people are saying, who is this Nityananda? What can you do for me?
Yeah. What can you do for me? Pride, huh? Well, as long as we've got pride, we cannot enter the spiritual world. Thinking we're eligible to enter into the spiritual world. We have no eligibility, only the mercy, only divine mercy of Nityananda. Anything else? Yes.
You talk about the devotee, the pure devotee is abhaya. He doesn't have fear. But it looks like contradictory because it all the devotees have fear from Maya. The pure devotees, he has all fear from Maya. Prabhupada always tells I afraid from Maya. And for me, I need to, if you can explain for me the difference, these two fears. Maybe you explain already, but I can't understand that.
A little bit, maybe. Yes, well, what can we say? I'm not afraid of Maya, so I'm not the right person, probably, but we'll try. I'm still attracted to Maya in the sense of Maya set as not being Krishna's energy, but theoretically, yes, but practically I still see it as an object of my pleasure. So a devotee is very afraid, not of the energy per se, but of the attitude of thinking, a situation of thinking that, this is for my pleasure. Afraid of the mentality of thinking that, anything really is meant for my pleasure, no matter what it is. Even on the path of devotional service, Maya is there. You may start getting pleasure out of being respected, for instance. And is explained in the path of devotional service, I don't think we read it in this purport, I can't remember, but in another place it explains how in the path of devotional service a devotee will find pleasure from these enemies, not from the enemies so much, but from the five senses, tongue, taste, and you start to enjoy it, and you start to sometimes measure success in devotional service to the degree that we're enjoying our senses in devotional service. It's a neophyte stage which will be there. But ultimately, that's not the point. The devotee doesn't want to see himself as being the enjoyer. He wants everything for the pleasure of Krishna. Automatically one will enjoy. It's a transitionary stage of growth in the association of a pure devotee who has no other desire than to satisfy Krishna's senses. That gradual transformation can take place. So a pure devotee is always he's afraid for his disciples falling into the trap also of Maya, falling into this mentality, or maintaining a mentality which already exists. The pure devotee Prabhupada was also concerned like this, like anything about his disciples. He was afraid that this movement would be interfered with by the materialists, which of course many times they endeavored to do that. This brought great concern to Srila Prabhupada. Internally, you can say he's showing an example to us that we should be afraid of this, and two, it's a fearful thing to fall under the influence of, let's say, intoxicated influence of thinking I am the enjoyer. And it's that fear, which healthy fear, not afraid from the mundane, self-centered point of view, but from the point of view of losing one's connection with Krishna or displeasing Krishna. Now, if you have a loving relationship with someone, or you want to develop it, you may be afraid of doing something which will perhaps turn the other person off. Isn't it?
Yeah.
You're afraid.
So it raises caution, basically.
Pardon?
It raises caution within
It's certainly a caution within you, and it can manifest in very fear. I mean, especially for the girls, they're very afraid sometimes, Very upset. Relationship. Yes, Peter.
Yeah, and it was told it was Rancho.
Pardon?
It was Rancho Prabhu.
Rancho Prabhu.
Who saw Prabhupada praying in front of Landeshwar. And he asked him, Srila Prabhupada, what are you praying for? He said, actually I'm praying not to be intrigued by Maya.
Yeah.
And so then he asked this question, Rancho, but Prabhupada, you are a transcendental soul, how can you? He said, what I'm telling you that you are not afraid of Maya. That is the thing. And that's why you're falling into Maya's hands again and again.
Again and again.
And we saw that Prabhupada, when he's leaving the body, there was not a tinge of afraidness there.
Same thing happened in Bombay. Shruti Kirti recounts that. Prabhupada had just given a class saying that You are all in danger. Every one of us is, we've got to be careful. We're not Uttama Bhagavats. Anyone can fall down. We may be trying, but we're not on the highest platform of pure devotional service. There is still the inclination for sense gratification there in many ways. You have to be very careful. You can fall down very carefully, very easily rather. Be careful of association.
When he looked at Lamnishwara, one time Ramsha asked him, are these your favorite deities? And Prabhupada said, even that would be sense gratification.
Anyway, Prabhupada then continued when the devotee asked. Afterwards, the devotee came to, I don't know if it was Shruti Kirti came into the room in Bombay, and Prabhupada was praying like you heard from Ranchur. He was praying to Radha Ishwar like that. He was praying also that, my dear Lord, he was praying to Radharani actually in this case, my dear Shrimati Radharani, please protect me that I never, ever become, fall under the material influences of any kind. And then Shri Kiri asked, what about that? And Prabhupada already explained that you may fall down, but then Prabhupada said, this is the consciousness of the pure devotee. This is what is the consciousness of an Uttama Adhikari. They are not taking it for granted. They are always taking shelter of the internal energy as their only shelter. That isn't Uttama Bhagavad. That they're always taking. They're not thinking, I can conquer over, I can control, I can do this, I can do that. They're always taking shelter. You can see that mentality in Prabhupada's Markandeya Bhagavad Dharma if you want to see the heart of Srila Prabhupada and how he's taking shelter of the divine energy. This is the position of a Tatastha Shakti. We say Prabhupada, whatever he is, but we are certainly from Tatastha Shakti. And the Tatastha Shakti Jiva has that tendency to either be under the material energy or the spiritual energy. And if we're still, as Prabhupada said, we mentioned earlier also how Prabhupada said, the problem with my disciples is they're not afraid of Maya. They're still embracing to a certain extent, grossly and subtly, the material energy due to our past conditioning or our present association. We have to be careful going on the news. Sometimes it's required, or whatever it may be, but sometimes we get carried away with it, and one thing leads to the next, and before long, our mind is thinking of this, that, and the other, and it's a trap. Very dangerous. We have to be careful not to get trapped. There's traps at every step, minefield. Be careful. Anyone else? Thank you. Okay, it's getting late. We better finish there. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Always remind us, chant, chant, chant. Keep chanting. Protection. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna. In Vedic times anyway, cousins is like Devaki and Kamsa. They're not brothers. Devaki. Devaki's father and his son. They have two different fathers. They come from the same root. These are two fathers. They're not even brothers. They're like brothers. So they're called brother sister. Cousins. Even today they're called. Today, traditional families still call each other brothers.